Hello everyone, please press subscribe, press follow, press the bell so you don't miss any new clips. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Author by Heavenly Overlord. Translator by NYOIBO Studio. Audio novels by Novelist. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 101, Arrogant Till the End. Su Yu turned around and looked. It was Lu Guang. He was following a short and plump youth, smiling pleasantly. The short and plump youth was around the same age as Su Yu, but his cultivation base had actually reached second-level Holy King. 14 years old and second-level Holy King. Su Yu was shocked. Li Guang and Zhu Rong had trained for a century, only to merely reach second-level Holy King. Even a genius like Li Konghui was merely half a Holy King at 20 years old. Restraining his shock, Su Yu looked away. He wondered how Xianna and Jingyu were doing. With their talents, they were likely taken in by some strong elders as their disciples. The short and plump youth glanced at Su Yu. You know him. Lu Guang bent over, aligning his height with the short and plump youth, as if he were a servant. Looking at Su Yu, Lu Guang replied disdainfully, he is a genius from the same island as me. After being tested we found out that he was a worthless spirit, and he was abandoned. Not sure how he managed to reach Zhenlong continent, or get into Lixian faction's recruitment exam. Hearing that Su Yu was a worthless spirit, the short and plump youth lost interest. For a moment, Lu Guang's eyes turned vicious as he whispered near the youth's ears, Senior Xuanhuan, he is Li Guang's official disciple. The short and plump youth's gaze went cold. As he smiled with his fat, small face, he did not look honest or simple. Instead, he looked ruthless and cruel. Interesting. His eyes suddenly turned towards Li Konghui. What relationship do you guys have with him? The disciples from Li family were extremely cold towards Su Yu. They had originally disliked him and therefore did not hesitate to keep their distance from him. We are merely strangers, Li Konghui replied carefully. You better be strangers. If you stay around him, I'll make sure all of you won't survive. Finally, he sent a cold look towards Su Yu. You'd better not enter Lixian faction. If you come in, you'd better watch out. After which, Lu Guang swaggered over. That was Senior Xuanhu, the faction's 10th elder's new disciple. One word from him is all it takes to ground forever. He snickered. I almost forgot. This worthless spirit body of yours, you don't even have the qualifications to enter the faction. You don't even have the qualifications to be pressured by Senior Xuanhu. If this was Shenyu Island, you might have been able to display your power. But in Zhenlong continent, you are beneath lowly ants. The difference between you and me will only get bigger. Whoosh. A wave of vital energy surrounded Lu Guang. After not seeing him for 1 month, he had actually achieved a breakthrough into first-level Holy King, becoming a real Holy King. Su Yu's expression did not change. The distance between you and me remains the same. The Holy King's realm is something a worthless spirit like you could never understand. Be nice, we might meet during the sparring match later. I'll show you the prowess of the Holy King's realm. Lu Guang swaggered away. Whoosh. Suddenly, a feminine figure appeared above the heads of thousands of people, dropping 100 flower petals. A low and faint voice was heard from the female's mouth. Hidden among these flower petals are 10 petals accompanied by low-grade marrow-cleansing elixirs. Whoever is able to snatch them, shall own them. The lady flew over, as if a celestial figure, shocking anyone who caught a glance of her. The crowd became excited. Aside from the top 30 ranking families, not many of the vassal family clans were able to get a hold of low-grade marrow-cleansing elixirs. Even for the genius disciples from the top 30 family clans, it was difficult to obtain marrow-cleaning elixirs. Among the 100 petals before them, there were actually 10 of those elixirs. They would all surely do their best to find them. Su Yu was moved. Swoosh. Using his extraordinary eyesight, Su Yu looked up and swept his gaze across the 100 flower petals. Although they appeared to be spread out, they may as well have rested at his feet. Instantly, Su Yu had discovered 3 low-grade marrow-cleansing elixirs, tied on the other side of the flower petals. However, before the flower petals dropped to the ground, there were already half-holy kings rushing towards the sky, snatching the elixirs in midair. Half-holy kings, with their wings made of vital energy, were extremely fast. Li Konghui's eyes lit up as he rushed toward the sky. He grabbed a flower petal into his hands, but it was empty. As he secretly sighed at his own unluckiness, a flower petal with a low-grade marrow-cleaning elixir attached to it suddenly flew past him. Extremely elated, Li Konghui extended his palm in a bid to grab it. Pack! However, it was at that moment, a sharp gust of wind attacked him from behind. Li Konghui's internal organs greatly trembled as he spat out a mouthful of blood before flying backward 10 meters. The elixir is mine. A 15-year-old youth grinned widely. Li Konghui was enraged, but after seeing the opponent's strength, his face was filled with fear instead. First-level Holy King. A 15-year-old first-level Holy King. In addition, Li Konghui had identified him as someone from the 100 vassal clans. That was a genius from the ranked third family clan, the Wu family's genius, Wu Pangyun. Despite his resentment, Li Konghui ultimately did not have the courage to directly confront him. Hence, he turned around and continued to search for the hidden elixirs in the remaining flower petals. Swoosh, swoosh. A purple light shone beside him. It maneuvered quickly, ignoring the flower petals beside him as it accurately grabbed 3 flower petals. What astonished everyone was that, of all the flower petals grabbed, all had a low-grade marrow-cleansing elixir attached to them. Su Yu did not stop as he stuffed them into his clothes. With another sweep of his eyes, he instantly discovered another 2 low-grade marrow-cleansing elixir which no one had discovered yet. Swoosh. Flying over, Su Yu grabbed 2 more, extremely elated. While everyone else was still squinting their eyes trying to differentiate which were the petals which had a low-grade marrow-cleansing elixir attached to it, Su Yu was already picking them out. In just a moment, he had obtained 5 low-grade marrow-cleansing spirit elixirs. Su Yu's movements attracted significant attention. He snatched 5 of them. Someone cried out in astonishment. One sentence was enough to arouse the jealousy of the crowd. Swoosh. Swoosh. Many were unable to resist the temptation of the 5 low-grade marrow-cleansing elixirs. As such, a small group came flying at Su Yu. Su Yu smiled coldly. You guys came at the right time. Swoosh. A purple flash left behind its afterimages in the sky as it maneuvered evasively in the crowd, like a shadow. Su Yu's speed was easily comparable with half a Holy King's. Ah, my elixir. He stole it. A half-holy king who joined in the encirclement was shocked. He had obtained 1 elixir secretively, which he had hidden carefully in his shirt. How had Su Yu realized that? How would he have known that, with just a glance, Su Yu had seen his actions clearly? How could he have defended himself? Among all 10 low-grade marrow-cleansing elixirs, 6 of them had actually been obtained by a single person, causing everyone to be shocked and impressed. Suddenly, a mysterious scene appeared in the skies. Multiple half-holy kings chased after a 14-year-old across the clouds. That 14-year-old youth could evade their pursuit and encirclement with much ease as if he was taking a stroll in a park. Swoosh. Suddenly, a flash of black light appeared beside Su Yu. A pair of eerily cold, playful eyes looked at Su Yu. On the account of your having laboriously helped me assemble 6 low-grade marrow-cleansing elixirs, I will naturally go easy on you. Boom. A gigantic palm harnessing the power of a first-level Holy King connected with Su Yu's chest. Such a vicious attack was clearly meant to inflict heavy damage. It was the opposite of an easy attack. The hunt ends. A faint voice was heard. Dong. The sound of a copper gong, full of spiritual energy, reverberated throughout the entire place. The crowd shuddered. The vital energy in their bodies dissipated. The various figures who were in midair fumbled, about to fall to the ground. The half-holy kings' faces all changed as they fell to the ground. A few of the first-level holy kings managed to glide down safely. Wu Pangyun gritted his teeth as his palm strike had been forcibly interrupted. Count yourself lucky. he snapped viciously, glaring at Su Yu. Su Yu's remained calm. All the half-holy kings and holy kings had nervously returned to the ground. Only Su Yu, as if he had not been affected by the copper gong, could return to the ground with ease, leaving everyone dumbstruck. Multiple holy king-level disciples could not help but look shocked and bewildered. They were unaware that Su Yu's ability to travel in the air was not from the materialization of his vital energy but due to a top-class light body cultivation technique. Even without this mysterious ability, thousands of geniuses were still in shock purely over how many elixirs he had collected. Of the 10, Su Yu had collected 6. It was incredible. The silver hair and purple clothes gave off a strange and mysterious aura. He left a deep impression in everyone's mind. Lu Guang, who was within the crowd, glared, "You're just as arrogant as ever." Being arrogant in Xuanhuan continent was no big deal, but to display such arrogance in Zhenlong continent, are you suicidal or just cocky? Su Yu smoothly landed on the ground and stood beside the Li family. He paid no heed to the glares and stares. The Li family genius juniors all swallowed, looking at the 6 entire low-grade marrow-cleansing elixirs. Su Yu had obtained half a year's worth of the Li family's elixirs all by himself. At that moment, a few of them wanted to fawn over him in hopes of getting an elixir. To think they had been so cruel and cold toward him. Thinking back, they were immensely regretful, too ashamed to ask for an elixir. Your luck is not bad, Li Konghui coldly looked over and commented briefly. The Li family's disciples discovered that Li Konghui had lost his high and mighty expression. His eyes now held a tinge of jealousy. They had all witnessed with their own eyes that the low-grade marrow-cleansing elixir, which should have belonged to Li Konghui, had been snatched away by Wu Pangyun. Yet Su Yu, who he hated the most, had snatched as many as 6 of them. It was no wonder Li Konghui did not behave like himself. Su Yu looked over coldly, perhaps arrogant. Li Konghui lightly snorted. To him, Su Yu's cold reply was no different from a loud brag. Swoosh. The female who was flying in the air was now floating in midair, as she silently surveyed the crowd. Her gaze was gentle and warm, stern and virtuous. Although she was over 40 years old, she preserved her dignified look and had an air of gentleness. Her image moved several of the youths. Su Yu activated his enhanced vision and analyzed her before he gasped. Qi, Ruo, Lan. Su Yu hated Han Ji for framing Li Guang, causing him to live in solitude for 100 years. But his most hated person was Shi Ruolan. What Shi Ruolan had hurt most was not Li Guang's body, but his heart. He had endured 100 bitter years for that woman. In the end, all he had received was her betrayal and fury. Su Yu's only motive for entering Lixian faction was to take her head. As if she had felt his gaze, Shi Ruolan turned around, extremely calm. It was as if nothing had happened, as if she had never tried to kill Li Guang. As her scarlet lips moved, a gentle and melodious voice could be heard. The first round of examinations has ended. What? The examination hasn't started. How is that possible? Not only were the disciples at a loss, but the accompanying elders were confused as well. The first round of examinations is the snatching of elixirs and flower petals. It is supposed to test the competitiveness of the disciples. Every elixir obtained is worth 2 points, and every flower petal obtained is worth 1 point. As for the rest of you, you have all failed. Come again after 5 years, Shi Ruolan said gently. What? Snatching of elixirs and flower petals was actually an exam component. They eliminated 900 people. Even the elders were flustered. Blue Xian faction's entrance examinations changed yearly, but they were mostly minute changes and were usually well within the expectations of the elders. However, for this year's entrance examinations, the absurd test of snatching elixirs and flower petals had eliminated almost all the applicants. You have not even tested their potentials, why disqualify them? Some elders asked. Among them, there were too many disciples who had been unable to attain even a single petal. More so, many of the younger disciples who were unable to fly had immediately given up and had watched from the sides with their arms folded. It was too harsh. Shi Ruolan faintly shook her head. For this entrance examination, potential is less important. Individual ability and a competitive mindset is the crux of the examination. This is the faction master's decision. If you all have any issues with it, you may direct your questions inside the faction. Although the various elders felt unjust and angry, they remained as quiet as cicadas in late autumn. Reason with the faction master. Who had the audacity to try that? With just his eyes, the Lu Xian faction's master could obliterate him completely. As she looked away, Shi Ruolan announced, "Those with flower petals and elixirs, come out." Swish. Amongst the 1,000 people present, only 90 people stepped forward. After all, one person could collect more than one flower petal, causing the others to lose their chance. The second round of examination is the individual strength competition segment. Shi Ruolan extended her jade-like fingers, and pointed to Su Yu in the distance. "You, come out." Su Yu's heart was cold. Was she trying to abuse her powers to stop him from entering Lixian faction? Fine. Swoosh. Su Yu stepped forward in front of the others. The rules of the competition are as follows. One must win 10 consecutive challenges, and the opponent that he challenges cannot be weaker than him in cultivation base. Should he be unable to sustain 10 matches, he will be disqualified. There is a time limit of 2 hours. If he wins more than 10 matches, the more he wins, the higher the points he will get. This will be added together with the points from the previous round. In addition, the person who obtains the most points will receive 5 additional low-grade marrow cleansing elixirs, and we will make an exemption for him to enter the faction's depository of scriptures. Everyone gasped in astonishment. Just the requirement of needing to win 10 people of the same cultivation base was highly difficult, and that was without the time limit. Not to mention they have to defeat those of a higher cultivation base. It was virtually impossible to do so. However, the winner of the round with the most points would receive an extremely shocking reward. Not mentioning how precious 5 low-grade marrow cleansing elixirs were, Lixian faction's depository of scriptures contained many invaluable and precious incomplete lineage cultivation techniques. Those were what the 100 vassal clans wanted. Their family clans did not have such cultivation techniques. The depository of scriptures was only open to disciples from the inner sanctum who had performed meritorious services for the faction. Such a reward was too good to be true. In an instant, the 90 geniuses who made it into the second round were all eyeing the prize. The reward for the person who obtained the most points was too great. Shi Ruolan daintily nodded. "The challenge starts now. You may choose your opponent freely, and remember only 2 hours. If you don't complete this task, you will be disqualified." Su Yu's expression was cold. To single him out right from the start, was she trying to sabotage his ability to plan ahead? Or, was it so that he would be the first to be disqualified? Undoubtedly, the participants who were challenged later had an absolute advantage over those before them. After observing the matches, they could tell at a glance which participants with the same cultivation base as them were weaker. Su Yu was essentially blindly relying on feeling, like using rocks to cross a river. If he was not careful and accidentally challenged the stronger participants with his same cultivation base, he could lose. Shi Ruolan, "I'll show you." Su Yu extended his finger and pointed in a certain direction in the distance. The person who was pointed at was a 19 years old with a whisker beard. Showing his battle intent, he took a step forward and laughed. "You want to challenge me? Hee hee, just what I wished for." However, Su Yu's finger changed directions. As he swept his finger horizontally across to another direction, he drew an arc in midair. "Not you." Su Yu faintly glanced at him. The expression of the teenager with a whisker beard stiffened. "Isn't this just blatant mocking?" Shi Ruolan frowned slightly and warned Su Yu, "If you don't decide on your opponent within 3 counts, you are disqualified." 1. 2. "Who said I didn't choose my opponents?" Su Yu replied coldly. After which, he swept his gaze across the crowd which he had pointed at previously. "All those who were within the arc I drew, step forward. I, alone, will battle all of you." Shi Ruolan's expression stiffened. With a sweep of his hand just now, he had grouped more than 50 people together as his opponents, more than half the people present. Among which, there were over 20 people of similar cultivation base as him. One person taking on 20 people simultaneously. Such absurdity and nonsense. After a moment of silence, the entire place burst forth in laughter. Xuanhuan slightly tweaked her eyebrows. For disrupting the order of the match, Su Yu is disqualified. Su Yu stared back coldly. Sorry, but I am serious. After which, he swept a look across those 20 people. I'm saying this for the last time. Step forward. I will take you all on simultaneously. Since he wanted to prove a point, he had to go all out. If he had carried on as someone insignificant, even if he had entered the faction, he was bound to have no notoriety to his name and would be harmed by Hanji and Xuanhuan. He might as well become someone of a high profile from the start, and attract the attention of the high-ranking people within the faction. That way, Hanji and Xuanhuan would have to think twice before they made a move on him, or else they would risk being found out. This was something Su Yu had pondered about for a long time. Before receiving any support, his safest bet was to expose himself and make his name known. Not only did he wanted to be arrogant, he wanted to obnoxiously so. One person challenging 20 people was just the start. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 102, Flower of the 100 Vassal Clans. The crowd's laughter slowly subsided, replaced by shock and astonishment. You were being serious? Xuanhuan asked, her facial expression stiff. The entire crowd gradually turned silent. Seeing Su Yu's clear eyes, occasionally flickering with wisdom, he was clearly not someone who messed around. Could it be that he was actually serious? Su Yu slightly shook his head. Yes, every word was true. A moment of silence ensued before it was broken by chattering elders and the genius disciples from the 100 vassal family clans. A few elders secretly assessed Su Yu and exchanged looks. Such confidence, don't tell me he has the skills to back it up. Whether he is skilled or not has yet to be seen, but his big talk and fiery arrogance are definitely unparalleled. Which clan is he from? From the looks of it, it appears he is from the ranked 30th Li family. Master Li felt slightly bitter as various clans stared at him. Su Yu's big talk indeed did not match his steady and seasoned look. After pondering for a short while, Master Li, who understood Su Yu's situation, suddenly understood Su Yu's efforts. To be protected, he needed to be well known. Simultaneously, while he secretly commended his wit and resourcefulness, he was worried about Su Yu. Tall trees in a forest were bound to be damaged by strong winds. Moreover, with his intentionally high profile, it was inevitable for him to incur the wrath of the majority. More importantly, did Su Yu possess the strength to fight 20 people alone? Was it too much of a stretch? Li Konghui and his company also felt the gesticulation of the people. They could not help but be angry. Ever since Su Yu had joined them, they had been harassed. First, they were threatened by Yuan Hu out of the blue for no good reason. Now, the Li family's reputation had been tarnished. Li Konghui shot a piercing gaze at Su Yu. He snorted angrily, disgraceful. As a Wild Island native, you are insignificant. Did you really think the geniuses from Zhenlong continent are even remotely near your level? Another member of the Li family chided angrily. Xuanhuan assessed Su Yu from head to toe. After a moment of silence, she nodded her head. You can fight 20 people simultaneously. But, should you lose, you will be immediately disqualified. Su Yu coldly nodded his head. No problem. Xuanhuan's jade-like finger pointed and swept across the same group of people. Among you all, those who are level 9 peak tier and above, step forward. Swoosh. Among those who were selected, there were 19 level 9 peak tier, and one half holy king. The 20 people stepped forward together, their eyes shameful and angry. One person taking on 20 people, such an unfair fight was unheard of. The half-holy king stood with his arms folded, not having any intentions of using his moves. 20 people versus one person. There was no honor for the victor to speak of. As a half-holy king, he felt even less inclined to attack. It was just too unfair. If you wanted to be in the limelight, congratulations, you have gotten what you asked for. Now, you should think about how to deal with our fury, he said casually. Su Yu took a step forward, and slowly lowered his hands from behind his back. His expression was as placid as a frozen lake, there wasn't a single ripple of anxiety. Their raging fury will be obliterated with my fists, he replied. Arrogant. You have a massive ego, don't you? Come on everyone, let's go together and give him what he's asking for. A level 9 peak tier attacked angrily. One after the other, the remaining level 9 peak tier participants attacked. Iron Dragon retreats. Finger-pointing empire. Soul-snatching dance. Nearly 20 attacks from level 9 peak tier opponents were launched in all kinds of different shapes and directions, each attack extremely colorful. For a moment, it was like a gorgeous firework display, dazzling and breathtaking. Su Yu stood in the middle, his gaze calm. Swoosh. As the onslaught of attacks charged towards Su Yu, his silver hair fluttered in the air. His heart began to emit an astounding amount of cold air. Dong dong. Waves of snowflakes shattered into tens of thousands of cold droplets, covering the entire venue. Crack. SSSSs. As the liquid came into contact with the clothes of the participants, it began to solidify into cold ice. Not good. Circulate your vital energy to dispel the cold ice. After all, they were geniuses of Zhenlong continent. They were extremely knowledgeable and therefore were able to effectively identify and deal with Su Yu's attack. However, should Su Yu will it, all creations on Earth would turn into cold ice. The heavy snowstorm persisted and brewed ceaselessly. Most of the participants spent massive effort just trying to protect themselves from the cold. Swoosh. Su Yu's purple figure disappeared into thin air. As if taking a stroll in the park, he maneuvered through the crowd with ease. Those touched by his fingertips immediately solidified into ice sculptures. Crack. Wherever Su Yu passed, the surroundings turned into ice crystals. Various geniuses wanted to find Su Yu and finish him off quickly. However, they could do nothing about it. There were too many of them and it was impossible to pinpoint Su Yu's location. In addition, they had no time to plan a cohesive strategy. As such, their formations were an utter mess, causing their advantage in numbers to become a disadvantage. When a few of them finally attacked Su Yu, more than half of the people were already reduced to ice sculptures. There's no impressiveness in relying on your sneaky cultivation techniques. Come and fight us face to face. There were only 4 level 9 peak tier opponents left. After they looked at each other, they attacked Su Yu together. Su Yu's vital energy surged as the transparent vital energy was reduced to cold ice, forming a protective layer around him. Simultaneously, both his fists and legs extended together. Facing 4 opponents alone, Su Yu attacked and defended simultaneously. Crash. Splitter-splatter. Even when faced with 4 opponents, Su Yu did not seem at a disadvantage at all. Comparatively, the 4 opponents who clashed directly with Su Yu were turned into ice. In the blink of an eye, the 4 fighters had turned into ice sculptures. At last, you were the only one left, Su Yu gazed over nonchalantly. The last person left was the half-holy king. He was a 17-year-old teenager with a handsome face and rough facial features. His expression was casual, he seemingly paid no heed to Su Yu's astounding strength. A deity-level cultivation technique at the mere age of 14 years old. Your insight is pretty good. Simultaneously wielding freely an ice-type cultivation technique. You are adept at group combat. Therefore, it is not beyond reason that you can challenge many at one time. Overall your strength is still acceptable, there are not many level 9 peak tier people who can win against you, the half-holy king smiled faintly. Although it was a praise, it was merely, still acceptable. My name is Wu Hao, you better remember it, the half-holy king said casually, a smile on his face. Su Yu was slightly taken aback for a moment, before he replied courteously, my name is. Stop. I don't need to know and I don't want to know. Either, Wu Hao chuckled as he put down his folded arms. You were merely the first stepping stone in my examination. My only intention in letting you know my name is so that you will remember who defeated you. Su Yu shut his mouth and faintly nodded his head. All right, I understand. Your move. Wu Hao puckered his face in a smile. Looks like you already remember my name. Would you like to step down now? A speck in a vast ocean. Wu Hao raised his finger and pointed at Su Yu in the distance. The power of nature assembled on Wu Hao's fingertips. It contained the faint breeze of seawater, carrying a deep comprehension of the ocean. An azure blue speck of light, akin to the raging ocean waves, headed in Su Yu's direction. Facing it, Su Yu appeared to be a speck in a vast ocean, about to be devoured by the raging waves. Holy decree, Su Yu asked with a faint smile, ice and thunder feast. Su Yu raised his finger as a purple and white light fused together on his fingertips. Purple thunder sparks and white cold ice, a fusion and feast of two natural powers. Kaboom! It was like a divine light that could destroy anything in the world across space and time. SSSSs. A white, purplish beam of light tore through the raging ocean waves, directly hitting Wu Hao's chest. Ah! Puff! Wu Hao was unable to block in time. He let out a shriek of pain, spewing blood while flying backward. His eyes contained great shock. To have actually been defeated after he had used his famous holy decree. Moreover, it was an overwhelming defeat. Su Yu stood with his hands clasped behind his back. With a light gaze, he looked over at Wu Hao. Your name is Wu Hao. Your name, I have definitely remembered, as a decent stepping stone. Wu Hao's face flushed with embarrassment. He was so ashamed that he wanted to dig a hole and burrow into it. Amidst the laughter of the crowd, Wu Hao retreated in shame. The battle had ended in an hour's time, 20 people all defeated. If there were still any doubts regarding Su Yu's strength, any assumptions that Su Yu had managed to obtain victory by means of trickery with his mysterious ice cultivation technique, then his defeat of Wu Hao with his holy decree was enough to prove that Su Yu indeed had the strength to back up his arrogance. Who is this person from Li family? Why had nobody heard of him before? Among the elders, they exchanged looks of shock. Li Konghui was Li family's most outstanding contemporary genius. Yet, when compared to Su Yu, he was significantly outshone. Based on the fact that the Li family had brought Su Yu along to partake in the entrance examination, it was apparent that their relationship was not simply superficial. Could it be that he had married a lady from the Li family? Should that be the case, they would need to pay attention to Su Yu's battles. Alternatively, the juniors had transitioned from their original uproar of laughter into cynicism and skepticism, and finally into the current state of reverence and adoration for Su Yu. The purple-robed figure stood silently in the center of the venue with his hands clasped behind his back. His handsome facial features coupled with his elegant attitude and noble aura made him stand out from the crowd. It was as if he was like a youthful deity recorded in ancient scrolls who had descended to the mortal world from the celestial realm. Looking at his astounding skills and exceptional talent, many were left dumbfounded. Many youths his age and older were deeply ashamed of their own inadequacies. Alternatively, several maidens had a colorful look in their eyes. One person taking on 20 people simultaneously, such unparalleled valor and strength were deeply moving. Coupled with an aura of nobility and looks comparable to a celestial being's, many young and innocent girls fell in love for the first time. Brother Konghui. A delicate voice was heard in Li Konghui's ears. Turning around, Li Konghui saw a 16-year-old maiden, smiling as she walked in his direction. She was extremely pretty, petite, and adorable. Many youngsters' eyes had a look of affection, their gazes fixated on her figure, following her wherever she went. She was Chen Zuya from the ranked 10th family clan of the 100 vassal clans, and she had a reputation of being the flower of the 100 vassal clans. Her beautiful looks, in addition to her adorably mischievous character, had won the hearts of many youngsters. Chen Zuya. Li Konghui held back his shock at her approach, though he was extremely flattered. Chen Zuya was lively and adorable, but not many guys had the opportunity to get close to her. Li Konghui also held feelings of affection for her and had tried to make advances several times. However, Chen Zuya was not interested and he, therefore, did not manage to hold many conversations with her. Seeing that Chen Zuya had come to speak to him on her own accord, and had addressed him as Brother Konghui, Li Konghui's heart thumped madly. Upon feeling the envious and furious looks from the surrounding guys, Li Konghui's vanity was greatly satisfied. As Chen Zuya hopped towards him, a tinge of fragrance could be smelt. Hee, is there a need for Brother Konghui to be so distant? Zuya will do just fine. Chen Zuya smiled, revealing her two adorable dimples. Hearing that, Li Konghui's blood rushed to his head and his heart beat uncontrollably. As his face slightly flushed, he briefly opened his lips and stuttered, Chen Zuya lightly acknowledged him and her snow-like face blushed, revealing embarrassment in her eyes. Her head slightly lowered, as if she did not dare to look at Li Konghui directly. Brother Konghui, can I ask you something? Dong. Could it be that Chen Zuya is in love with me? Her eyes filled with embarrassment, her blushing face, were those not the signs of a maiden in love? You may speak your mind. Li Konghui's heart was in his mouth, his face flushed red with embarrassment. Chen Zuya's embarrassment deepened even further as if she were about to cry. Lowering her head, she said whispered, Brother Konghui, is that purple-robed gentleman married into your family? If not, is it possible for you to introduce me to him? Boom. As if his brain had been struck by lightning, Li Konghui's face turned stiff. His rapidly thumping heart was completely frozen. He felt like a bucket of ice water had been poured over it, causing him to stop breathing. Chen Zuya, her motive for approaching Li Konghui was to actually ask about Su Yu. That look of embarrassment and the look of a maiden falling in love for the first time was not directed at Li Konghui but at Su Yu. Zuya, you like him. Li Konghui's mind was blank. The object of his unrequited love had actually taken a liking to the Su Yu, whom he looked down upon. He couldn't believe it. Chen Zuya's face flushed even redder with embarrassment as if she was about to tear up. No, I'm not. I only wish to know him. Brother Konghui, please don't misunderstand, she was abashed. Although she phrased it that way, how could her facial expressions mean anything else? Li Konghui appeared as if he had been struck by another bolt of lightning. He was deeply overwhelmed and traumatized. The reality was harsh and cruel. My father's impression of him appears to be good as well. He was the one who asked me to come. Chen Zuya's voice became softer and softer as she chanced to look at the Chen family crowd. Her parents were filled with admiration as they assessed Su Yu, who stood silently with his hands clasped behind his back. Poof. It was a miracle that Li Konghui did not vomit blood. Even the parents-in-law have given their approval. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 103, Princess Xuanhuan. Did that not mean that, with his consent, Su Yu could marry into the Chen family as their son-in-law? Would he marry the flower of the 100 vassal clans? Li Konghui's chest felt like it was about to explode. Ever since Su Yu had appeared, nothing had gone according to plan. On top of that, he had taken the maiden heart of his unrequited love. He had even stolen the hearts of her parents. He had gone too far. The Li family had treated Su Yu with such kindness, and yet he repaid their kindness with ingratitude. All right, after this, I will introduce you to. Li Konghui gritted his teeth, revealing hatred in his eyes. Chen Zuya smiled. Thank you, Brother Konghui, you are a nice guy. Upon receiving Li Konghui's unconditional help, Chen Zuya's face slightly blushed as she bit her lips. Actually, my parents like Brother Su Yu. Say, if there is a possibility that they might betroth me to him. If that happens, you have to attend our wedding dinner. Master Chen had the intention of roping Su Yu in by making him marry into the family. Poof. Her words before she left had, once again, mercilessly stabbed him. Su Yu, Li Konghui secretly roared in his heart. He hated Su Yu to the core. Su Yu had no idea of what had transpired during this period. With 1 hour remaining, Su Yu continued to challenge many people at once. As there was a time limit, Su Yu wanted to avoid challenging half-holy kings. Alas, it was ultimately inevitable. With the remaining time, Su Yu challenged another 10 people. Among them, there was a female half-holy king. After defeating 10 level 9 peak-tier opponents, there was only one half-holy king left. It's your turn. Use your moves. Su Yu silently kept track of the time. The amount of time remaining was insufficient to defeat her. My name is Chen Zuya. I admit defeat. The half-holy king stuck out her tongue and ran off the stage with her flushed face. Su Yu was extremely shocked. It was the first time an opponent had actually admitted defeat before fighting. Even the level 9 peak-tier opponents, despite knowing that they were not a match for him, also battled till the end. Yet the half-holy king before him had actually admitted defeat on her own accord. Moreover, Su Yu had not had the chance to catch a proper glimpse of her face. She Ruolan flicked the copper gong with her hands and announced indifferently, Su Yu, 49 consecutive wins, obtaining 98 points. In addition to the 6 elixirs and 5 flower petals, you have a total of 115 points. Next person, you. Shi Ruolan randomly pointed his finger at Li Konghui. Li Konghui shot a death stare at Su Yu. Jumping onto the center of the battle stage, he pointed to a group of people in the distance. I challenge all 20 of you. Everyone burst into an uproar. However, with Su Yu's magnificent display before him, challenging 20 people wasn't as shocking as it usually would be. Master Li frowned, influenced by his own emotions, acting on impulse. Su Yu's arrogance was justified. Alternatively, Li Konghui was fueled by his emotions, and wanted to challenge 20 people just to compete with Su Yu, and to vie for a maiden's heart. The atmosphere was not as heated as he thought it would be, causing Li Konghui to be slightly disappointed. Turning his head made him burn with anger. Chen Zuya was not even looking at the battle stage. She was standing beside her parents, staring at Su Yu's profile, entirely infatuated. Su Yu. With great fury, Li Konghui's moves were vicious and ruthless. Every move was full of openings. He attacked without any semblance of cohesiveness and order, lacking calmness and planning. It is merely a sparring match, yet you are so vicious and ruthless. Guys, let's all attack together. Li Konghui had inadvertently angered 20 level 9 peak-tier opponents. Unlike Su Yu, Li Konghui did not have any cultivation techniques that could suppress the crowd. Moreover, dealing with many people simultaneously was an uphill task. Incurring the wrath of his opponents also made it harder for him to cope, putting him in danger. Dong. After 2 hours, out of the 20 people, Li Konghui only managed to defeat 15 of them. Nevertheless, he still won, as he fulfilled the requirements of 10 consecutive wins. He had sustained injuries in many parts of his body. His resolute face was filled with black bruises and swelling, and his clothes were mostly torn. His figure was a sorry sight. It was apparent to the crowd that Li Konghui's battle had been too much for him. In addition, there were no half-holy kings mixed within the group, or else the chances of him losing would have been extremely great. Upon witnessing this scene, Chen Zuya stole another glance at the calm and collected Su Yu. With that, her admiration for Su Yu deepened even more. Puff. Paying attention to Chen Zuya's expression, Li Konghui's heart spasmed. He had originally challenged 20 people to compete with Su Yu, to prove to Chen Zuya that he too was capable of challenging many people simultaneously. This was done in hopes of changing Chen Zuya's mind. Little did he know that he had actually helped increase Su Yu's fame. This deepened Chen Zuya's feelings of affection for Su Yu. Upon returning to the clan, face the wall and reflect for half a year. Master Li chided him with a gloomy expression. The reason Su Yu could accomplish with ease was that he was well versed in various aspects and adept at applying them practically. In addition, his cultivation technique was effective at dealing with group attacks. Alternatively, not only did Li Konghui not have exceptionally superior skills, he also was not adept at dealing with group attacks. Rashly attempting to copy Su Yu was an absolute disgrace. He had also implicated the Li family's reputation, bringing disgrace to the Li family. Luckily, in the eyes of outsiders, Su Yu was considered a member of the Li family. As such, there were still reservations toward the way they perceived the Li family. Master Li sighed. The fact that their reputation actually needed an outsider like Su Yu to maintain and uphold their reputation was utterly ironic. Qi Ruolan consecutively appointed a few strong people to assume the stage. Wu Pangyun, Lu Guang, and an extremely elegant and beautiful 18-year-old maiden were all first-level holy kings. As if they had been provoked by Su Yu, all three of them chose to challenge multiple people simultaneously. The Battle of Holy Kings was indeed an eye-opener, among which, the beautiful maiden, appeared to have achieved a breakthrough into first-level Holy King not long ago. In addition, she was not adept at dealing with group attacks. Hence, she merely defeated 55 people within 2 hours. Combined with the elixir she received, she had obtained a total of 112 points. Although Lu Guang also achieved a breakthrough into first-level Holy King not long ago, he had come from an arduous environment, Xuanhuan continent, which was extremely lacking in terms of resources. As such, with his extremely strong potential, he managed to defeat 60 people. Combined with the elixir he had gotten previously, he obtained a total of 122 points. The most astounding person was Wu Pangyun. Although he was a first-level Holy King, he was heads and shoulders above the beautiful maiden and Lu Guang. He had defeated 70 people all by himself. Combined with the elixir he had gotten previously, he had obtained a total of 142 points. Wu Pangyun had dazzled everyone. As expected from the ranked third family of the 100 vassal clans, the Wu family. An exceptional talent like Wu Pangyun is rarely seen. That Lu Guang who came from that barren island is not too shabby either. Coming from a place with such harsh conditions and limited resources, his abilities are rather exceptional. Princess Xuanhuan is also worth mentioning. Upon mentioning Princess Xuanhuan, various youngsters secretly glanced at her. Their eyes revealed traces of affection for her as well. Princess Xuanhuan was 18 years old and in her prime. She had a graceful stature and a curvaceous body. Her moon-white dress was spotlessly clean, and her fair face was breathtakingly beautiful. Her skin was akin to white snow. Under the sunlight, it reflected a faint fluorescent light. Her pair of clear eyes was like the clear waterfalls in the wilderness, tranquil without a speck of impurity. With her scarlet lips and jade-like teeth, her face was flawless and impeccable. At that moment, she stood demurely, as if space and time stilled for her. Her elegance and the respectable disposition made her exceptional. The youngsters were all lost in concentration. They found it difficult to snap out of their mesmerized state. Only after being reminded by others did they immediately retract their gazes. Princess Xuanhuan was the fiancée of a prince from the local empire. That prince was a genius who had successfully entered the inner sanctum last year. His strength was terrifyingly great. If anyone were to harbor any ill intentions toward Princess Xuanhuan, it wasn't hard to imagine what kind of punishment they would receive. Hearing the various discussions, Su Yu could not help but be curious and shot a glance at Princess Xuanhuan. Demure and elegant, she had exceptionally beautiful looks. For a second, Su Yu was under the illusion that he was gazing at Jia Jingyu. However, after that split second, he lightly shook his head and retracted his gaze. Although she appeared to be celestial, it was difficult for her to replace Jia Jingyu's place in his heart. Actually, Princess Xuanhuan was also observing Su Yu. Naturally, she would pay some attention to the 14-year-old boy, who possessed exceptional skills and astounding talents. Upon seeing Su Yu's clear gaze, it made Princess Xuanhuan, who was used to enduring the stealthy and covetous eyes of countless men, grow fond of him. She puckered her face into a smile. It was enough to overthrow an entire city. The individual challenge match has ended. Next up will be the top 100 ranking matches. The rules are as such. The person with the lowest points will challenge those with higher points than him. If he wins, he will receive 1/3 of the points of the person that he challenged. If he loses, he will have to give 1/3 of his own points to the person that he challenged. If it is a tie, the challenger will have to give the person he challenged 1/4 of his points. After the battles, the points will be counted. From now onward, the person with the lowest points will have to challenge someone with higher points. Most of the people had only 1 or 2 points. After discussing, they nominated one person to begin challenging. From the lowest to highest, the victor would continue to challenge someone who was ranked higher than him. If he lost, then the person challenged would continue challenging people above him. This process would be repeated until the person with the highest points, Wu Pangyun, was challenged. The entire process persisted for a while. Finally, it had reached the level of half-holy kings. Chen Zuya challenged Li Konghui, who was ranked higher than her. Revealing a smile on her face, 2 dimples appeared on Chen Zuya's face as she asked, "Brother Konghui, let me win, okay?" Seeing the pitiful Chen Zuya, Li Konghui was moved. While he contemplated, he heard Chen Zuya softly mumbling. "Later, when I admit defeat to Brother Su Yu, will he feel grateful for me?" He. Those words sent Li Konghui into a rage. "Zuya, there are no hard feelings in sparring. Moreover, the seniors are observing. If I purposely give you a chance, I might be chided." Chen Zuya curled her upper lip slightly and revealed a look of unhappiness on her face. "After you win against me, won't you just lose to Brother Su Yu?" Hearing those words, Li Konghui flew into a rage. He definitely wouldn't hold back now. Kaboom! After merely 3 moves, a moment's carelessness caused Chen Zuya to misjudge her opponent's moves, causing her to receive a fatal blow to her shoulder. With a loud shriek, she was defeated. With traces of blood on her lips, Chen Zuya's eyes were filled with grief. Tears started to well up in her eyes, before she turned around and fled, leaving behind only 3 angry words, "I hate you." By the time Li Konghui had returned to his senses, it was already too late. Now he had no hope of deepening ties with Chen Zuya. "Next up, you will challenge someone with more points than you," Shi Ruolan announced calmly. Li Konghui swept his eyes across the remaining participants. Before him, there were still many half-holy kings. However, his gaze passed right through them before it eventually fixated on Su Yu. "May I challenge higher-ranked people?" Li Konghui gritted his teeth. Shi Ruolan looked in the direction his gaze was fixated on and shot a glance at Su Yu before coldly nodding her head. "You may." "That's good. Then, I challenge Su Yu." Li Konghui was elated. In terms of individual combat ability, Li Konghui was confident that he would not lose to Su Yu. "Su Yu, step forward," Shi Ruolan announced indifferently. Swoosh. The 2 of them flew to the center of the venue and stood still as they looked at each other. "Su Yu, accept your death." Li Konghui howled lowly and attacked Su Yu without any warning. Su Yu's face revealed a look of bewilderment, as he did not know where Li Konghui's hatred originated from. Feeling the strong winds of anger, Su Yu dared not belittle him and took his attack seriously. Long river-piercing energy. Li Konghui followed up seamlessly. A top-tier deity-level cultivation technique. Both palms drew a circle in midair, with a strong energy circling within. With a biting cold aura, it sucked in the surrounding gravel and combined it into a flying turbine. Boom! Using his palms, he pushed forward the turbine of energy. It had an unparalleled power, engulfing everything in its path. It appeared to be a long river infused with energy. Its mightiness was hard to match. Seeing that Li Konghui had actually used a lethal move, Su Yu's eyes turned cold. Ice and Thunder Feast. Su Yu raised his finger and pointed. A divine, massively destructive light was volleyed toward Li Konghui. Poof. Although the turbine of energy was strong, it was difficult to match Su Yu's Ice and Thunder Feast. Kaboom. The turbine of energy, which contained gravel shrapnel, exploded loudly. The gravel exploded out in all directions at an incredible speed. As Li Konghui was at point-blank range, he had no means of defending against it. His entire body was instantly assaulted by the rain of gravel. Ah! Poof! Li Konghui spat blood as he flew backward. However, that was not the end of the attack. The remaining sparks from the ice and thunder feast utterly destroyed Li Konghui's chest. With Li Konghui's prone state, even if he did not die, he would sustain heavy injuries. Not good. Su Yu's face slightly changed. With a slight shift in position, he raised his hands and caught multiple gravel stones which were headed toward the door. Flicking those gravel aside, Su Yu managed to extinguish the remnant sparks. Swoosh. With another flick of his hand, Su Yu proceeded to catch Li Konghui, who was about to hit the ground. The juveniles of Li family were not friendly to Su Yu at all. However, Li Guang would not wish for Su Yu to kill his family clan's descendants. Master Li's face was filled with relief and gratitude. However, it was at that moment, something nobody could have foreseen happened. Li Konghui's eyes turned cold. He actually took advantage of the moment when Su Yu caught him, attacking Su Yu's head with his palm. That palm was swift and deadly, and it was a surprise attack. Su Yu, even holy kings, couldn't defend against it. Die. Li Konghui lost his rationality, his head was clouded with anger. Vile creature. Master Li's facial expression stiffened, his eyes revealed immense rage. Li Konghui had actually repaid kindness with ingratitude, taking the opportunity to sneak in an attack. Everyone gasped in astonishment. Nobody had expected Li Konghui to launch a sneak attack at such a moment. However, they were all too far away to help Su Yu. Yet, looking at the incoming palm, Su Yu's eyes turned completely ice-cold. I, Su Yu, have already done everything in my capacity. Don't blame me. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 104, Battle of Holy Kings. Infernal Demon Pupils. Su Yu coldly said. His eyes projected a ray of black light that rushed into Li Konghui's mind. Ah! Li Konghui hugged his head and let out a shriek as he fell to the ground, rolling about in immense pain. Li Konghui had launched a surprise, frontal attack on Su Yu at a close distance. He had no idea what he was messing with. Having complete mastery over infernal demon pupils, a single thought was sufficient to easily inflict great damage to a person's soul. Master Li walked over gloomily. He raised his leg and kicked Li Konghui in his abdomen. Letting out a shriek, Li Konghui rolled a distance away on the floor, fainting on the spot. Facing Su Yu, Master Li cupped his fists and bowed, his face revealing immense shame. I did not teach my brethren well, he is a disgrace to my family. Even if they were from the same family clan, the various juniors who looked up to Li Konghui were also extremely ashamed. Their faces burned red with shame. Li Konghui's actions had indeed brought disgrace upon the entire family clan. Su Yu had won the battle. However, just as Su Yu was about to challenge Lu Guang, who had higher points than him, Shi Ruolan announced, Su Yu won, and obtains 1/3 of Li Konghui's points, 5 points, adding up to a total of 120 points. Next up, the person 1 rank higher than Li Konghui will continue to challenge. Su Yu did not have the right to challenge yet, as the match would carry on as per usual, with the lowest ranked person challenging someone with higher points. Lu glanced at Su Yu with a cynical smile. Do you seek death so badly? Calm and collected, Su Yu was indifferent. I've told you before, those who have wanted me dead, are all dead now. Only I am still alive. During the battle in the Forbidden Land, Lu Guang was extremely arrogant. Yet, it had ended with his defeat. In the past, Su Yu had told Lu Guang those same words. At that moment, an extremely similar scene played out once again. Su Yu, do you think I'm the same person as I was before? You cannot possibly hope to understand my current strength, with my high-grade yellow class constitution and my breakthrough into the Holy King realm. Smiling faintly, Su Yu refused to comment as he continued to observe the ongoing matches quietly. HMPH. Forcibly pretending to be calm. When Princess Xuanhuan challenges you, that will be the day that you reveal your true colors. A worthless spirit like you actually dare think of competing with my level of constitution. Lu Guang coldly snorted. The battle between the half-holy kings became increasingly exciting. Having a half-holy king cultivation base implied that the body absorbed minimal vital energy. Although the base was weak, there was still some vital energy present. Should one infuse it with their martial arts training, their powers would increase significantly. Su Yu could not help but secretly feel envious. If the half-holy kings were already like that, what about the true holy kings? Swoosh! Princess Xuanhuan, who was standing beside him, descended into the battlefield. With her excellent figure and aura of nobility and elegance, she quietly faced her challenger, the strongest half-holy king. Princess Xuanhuan, please. The half-holy king displayed deep respect in his eyes. Princess Xuanhuan remained calm and collected as she lightly pointed her jade-like finger. A gust of vital energy came bursting out from her finger. SSSSSs. The vital energy, which contained terrifying power, pierced through the skies and flew towards the half-holy king. Mountain River Tiger Roar. The half-holy king's expression suddenly became stern. Opening his mouth to take a deep breath, he stuttered suddenly. The sound waves reverberated far and wide, destroying mountains and rivers, opening the ears of the deaf and the eyes of the blind. As the sound waves traveled, they swept the gravel along and caused a dust storm. Countless rocks, unable to withstand the force of the sound waves, were instantly destroyed. Containing a sliver of vital energy, the formless waves swept away all obstacles in their way as it collided with the vital energy heading in their direction. Bam! Such an immensely powerful sound wave was insignificant against Princess Xuanhuan. That mere sliver of vital energy, in terms of quality, was far beneath Princess Xuanhuan. As such, it instantly dissipated upon collision. Princess Xuanhuan had intentionally slanted the angle at which she fired her vital energy. As such, it brushed right past the half-holy king. Even though it was a miss, the residual waves from the vital energy were enough to completely destroy the half-holy king's clothes. He felt like he had been struck by lightning, spewing blood as he flew backward. Had that been a direct attack, would it have massacred the half-holy king? Su Yu's eyes became stern. Speaking in the strictest sense, that was his first time witnessing a holy king in action at such a close distance. Li Guang and Zhu Rong both had not used their moves seriously before. Shi Ruolan's realm was too high, and thus could not be used to accurately judge the disparity in strength between a holy king and a martial artist. Seeing Princess Xuanhuan's casual point of a finger, Su Yu understood in his heart, the amount of vital energy a holy king had was so terrifying, it was beyond Su Yu's expectations. Princess Xuanhuan won, and she will obtain 1/3 of the opponent's points, possessing a total of 150 points. Please challenge the next person. Lu Guang's face revealed slight playfulness as she giggled. Su Yu, I look forward to your performance, he. Lu Guang, step forward. Princess Xuanhuan demanded elegantly and gracefully, as she pointed with her fingers. As his expression slightly stiffened, Lu Guang pointed at Su Yu. In terms of ranking, Princess Xuanhuan should have challenged him first. I don't like to bully the weak. It will be fairer if you and I battle. Princess Xuanhuan shook her head indifferently. Recovering from his moment of shock, Lu Guang stiffly nodded his head disappointedly. All right, I will battle you. As he walked towards the stage, he snorted at Su Yu, count yourself lucky. Princess Xuanhuan, please be careful. Lu Guang's expression turned stern. Claw of the Divine Eagle. His 5 fingers were surrounded by a faint light as if they were the claws of the 9th heaven eagle, as if they had the ability to tear apart the mountains, rivers, and the whole earth. A gust of vital energy surrounded his claws, exuding an extremely oppressive energy. Su Yu's expression stiffened. The amount of and strength of the vital energy was indeed terrifying. The claws displayed by a holy king were definitely not something a martial artist could possibly hope to match. The disparity in power was overwhelming. SSSSs. Lu Guang's figure was as swift as light as he charged forward. With a swipe of his claws, 5 streaks appeared as if they had descended from heaven. Fast as lightning, those streaks shook the air. The combined sound of 5 explosions produced a sound wave which pierced the ears. This sound wave could match the full force of the half-holy king's sound wave cultivation technique. Countless juniors who were observing the battle felt their hearts constrict under the immense pressure. That was the strength and might of the Holy King's realm. Although Princess Xuanhuan's eyes were serious, her attitude and actions remained elegant as usual. Brewing of storm. Princess Xuanhuan, in her white dress, flew elegantly across the ground as if she was dancing. She placed her white jade-like palm in front of her chest. Hoo! A clear wind appeared out of nowhere and surrounded her entire body. Shockingly, what she specialized in was actually wind attribute cultivation techniques. She had the ability to control the winds of heaven and earth. As she flipped her jade-like hands, the wind gradually became stronger. Countless water bubbles solidified around her, forming a thin layer of mist. She could change them into rain or mist at will. SSSSs. Elegantly pointing with her jade-like hands, a strong wind engulfed the water bubbles as they took on a knife-like shape. After being infused with vital energy, her attack was akin to a celestial soldier. There was nothing it could not slash through. The knife of storm stabbed through the air, clashing with the claw of the divine eagle. Boom! The immensely strong claw of the divine eagle had actually appeared to be on the verge of dissipating. As his body slightly trembled, Lu Guang continued to launch a direct attack. Alternatively, Princess Xuanhuan elegantly received his attack with much ease. Their figures blurred as they continued to exchange attacks. Both of their abilities were equally matched, and the winner could not be determined for a while. The magnificent battle of the Holy Kings was an eye-opener for many of the juniors. Spiritual energy was the deciding factor between a martial artist and a holy king. Only with the passing of time did the mild differences between the two finally show. Princess Xuanhuan's stamina was slowly unable to keep up. Alternatively, Lu Guang was still energetic. His offense and defense were both precise, revealing his wealth of battle experience. Finally, Princess Xuanhuan fell into an unfavorable position. Her defeat was merely a matter of time. 100 moves have passed. According to the rules, the person in a more favorable position, Lu Guang, wins. Obtaining 1/3 of Princess Xuanhuan's points, he has a total of 170 points. Now, he will challenge the last person, Wu Pangyun. Shi Ruolan announced. The masses were slightly shocked. Was it not supposed to be the lowest remaining ranking person, Su Yu's turn to continue challenging? Why had it gone to Lu Guang challenging Wu Pangyun? The final winner between these two will challenge the last person, Su Yu. This is to preserve the fairness of the match, Shi Ruolan explained. The masses nodded their hands in agreement. Swoosh. Wu Pangyun flew into the middle of the battle venue and assessed Lu Guang from head to toe. His gaze slight vicious, he praised Lu Guang, still passable. Lu Guang's face revealed an unwillingness to comply. Use your moves. Do you want me to handicap a few moves for you? Wu Pangyun taunted. No need. I want to see exactly how big the disparity is between a first-level lower-tier Holy King and a first-level upper-tier Holy King. Like the tiers in the martial artists' realms, Holy Kings were also split into lower tier, upper tier, and peak tier. Wu Pangyun was a first-level upper-tier Holy King, a tier higher than Lu Guang. Difference. The difference is that, against me, you are utterly fragile. Wu Pangyun replied with a smile. Unable to stand being belittled, Lu Guang shouted in anger, that may not be necessarily true. Claw of the Divine Eagle. Lu Guang channeled all his spiritual energy and infused it within his attack. The eagle claw, capable of tearing through mountains and rivers, was immensely strong. SSSSSs. In the blink of an eye, Lu Guang assaulted Wu Pangyun. A terrifying attack was about to pierce through Wu Pangyun's flesh. Countless juniors observing the match shuddered with fear, their hearts were in their throats. However, Wu Pangyun continued to smile lightly. The disparity between the tiers of the Holy King realm is something that far exceeds that of the martial arts realm. A small difference in tiers is worlds apart in terms of ability. Say that after you've neutralized my attacks. Lu Guang shouted in anger. Wu Pangyun shook his head cynically. Against you, there is no need for me to use my skills. One finger is enough. Against the terrifying claw of the divine eagle, Wu Pengyu only raised a finger. However, his fingers were surrounded by spiritual energy that far exceeded Lu Guang's. As he lightly touched the claw of the divine eagle, everyone gasped in astonishment. Poof! Lu Guang's claw of the divine eagle instantly vanished as a destructive force traveled from his hands to his shoulders. Thud, thud, thud. As he took a few steps back, traces of fresh blood could be seen at the corner of Lu Guang's mouth. His eyes were filled with shock. The disparity between a first-level Holy King lower tier and an upper tier was great. He didn't even have the strength to force his opponent into a counterattack. As the crowd watched Wu Pengyun's invincible figure, their hearts shook. Who could possibly match Wu Pengyun? Wu Pengyun wins, obtaining 1/3 of his opponent's points. His total points are 200. Next battle, he will challenge the final opponent, Su Yu. Shi Ruolan announced. Wu Pengyun shifted his gaze and fixated it on Su Yu. His eyes were vicious and cold. Rascal, it seems like your good luck has run out. During the snatching of the elixirs, Su Yu had single-handedly obtained 6 low-grade marrow-cleansing elixirs. Just as Wu Pengyun was about to snatch them away from him, Su Yu had luckily evaded him with the announcement of the end of the segment. However, I have no interest in winning unfairly. I will handicap 3 moves for you. Hurry up and use your moves, Wu Pengyun said in a disinterested tone, slightly impatient. This time, he was undoubtedly the indisputable winner. Besides being able to obtain 5 low-grade marrow-cleansing elixirs, the most valuable prize was the entry into the Depository of Scriptures, the chance to learn the rumored legacy-level cultivation technique. Su Yu flew into the center of the venue and laughed slightly as he stood. Handicap 3 moves. Why is there a need for you to give me a handicap when I can deal with you single-handedly? Against tyrannical and vicious people like Wu Pengyun, Su Yu did not attempt to hide his contempt. His words shook everyone present. Wu Pengyun was indisputably the strongest candidate in the entire exam. Yet, Su Yu had announced that he merely needed one hand to deal with him. Had Su Yu been a first-level lower-tier Holy King, he might have had some credibility behind those words. However, for a martial artist who had not even reached half Holy King, to actually announce he only needed one hand to deal with a first-level upper-tier Holy King, it was astonishing. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 105, The Ultimate Test. The entire crowd was momentarily dumbfounded before they eventually erupted into a heated discussion. Where did this Li family descendant get his confidence from? For a martial artist to challenge a Holy King, how was it possible? The elders were all puzzled. The juniors were extremely excited. Is Su Yu really that powerful, to challenge a Holy King with just one hand? Is he really the same as us, merely martial artists? Princess Xuanhuan's eyes were filled with curiosity as she observed. Lu Guang was momentarily stunned. Frog living under a well. The strength of a Holy King is not something a martial artist like you can hope to challenge, he said cynically. The most shocked person was, however, Wu Pengyun. After his momentary shock, his expression gradually turned cold. Fight me with only one hand. Such arrogance. Wu Pengyun's face glimmered with hostility as he said, let me see, where did you get that arrogance of yours from? Swoosh. With a flick of his figure, Wu Pengyun disappeared from his original spot. The next moment, he reappeared within 10 feet of Su Yu. A finger wrapped in a terrifying spiritual energy was pointed at Su Yu's chest. Die. Bam. The finger moved incredibly fast. When the crowd's eyes caught up with it, it was already pointed at Su Yu's chest. Sizzle. The audience shuddered with fear. Was that finger not bent on killing Su Yu? Piak. However, in that instance, Su Yu did something incomprehensible. He did not dodge, but instead counterattacked with his palm. Such a terrifying spiritual energy was more than enough to completely destroy his palm, rendering him handicapped for the rest of his life. Boom. The palm and finger collided. Yet, the tragedy of blood and flesh flying across the venue as the audience expected, ultimately did not happen. Instead, a loud boom reverberated throughout the skies, shaking the clouds. It was as though heavenly lightning had descended, sweeping across the entire sky. The great earth trembled mildly, the sky was crying. The masses were unprepared, their hearts began to convulse. An insanely strong airwave traveled in all directions, the two opponents at the center. Instantly, the dust clouds rose. The airwave generated was so strong that it was akin to a huge army charging forward to kill their enemies. When the dust clouds settled down, the audience regained a clear view of the fight. What greeted their eyes was a shocking scene. Su Yu stood in his original spot silently, his hair flying in the wind along with his purple clothes. He was completely unharmed. However, the same could not be said for Wu Pangyun. After retreating about 5 steps backward, his right sleeve had been completely destroyed. The blood and flesh on his naked arm were indistinguishable from one another, especially his palm, which was burnt to a crisp. His face contorted in immense pain, but it was still unable to hide the astonishment and shock on his face. Legacy-level cultivation technique. Wu Pangyun's shock was extraordinary. There was supposed to be only one legacy-level cultivation technique, which was supposed to exist only within Lu Xian faction, and it had appeared now, thanks to Su Yu. Master Li was shocked. How could it be a legacy-level cultivation technique? It was hard to imagine that a junior from an island in the wilderness would actually possess such an incredible legacy-level cultivation technique. Princess Yunyan's lips were slightly parted. Her elegant face revealed a deep sense of astonishment. The cynicism in Lu Guang's eyes was gradually replaced by shock and jealousy. That move is actually a legacy-level cultivation technique. Once, Su Yu had used that move to successfully launch a sneak attack on Zhu Rong. With Su Yu's cultivation realm at that time, he was unable to understand the origins of Purple Star Thunderbolt. Only upon hearing Wu Pangyun's shock, had he realized that his past defeat from that move was not without a good reason. Legacy-level cultivation techniques are something that even I could not obtain. He attained it in Shenyu continue. The jealousy in Lu Guang's heart was difficult to quell. He understood very well that, even after entering Lixian faction and achieving a breakthrough into Holy King, it would be extremely difficult for him to get his hands on a remnant volume of a legacy-level cultivation technique. Even someone as talented as Yuan Hu, a 14-year-old second-level Holy King, had barely managed to borrow one. Yuan Hu had only managed it with the strong recommendation of the faction elders. It was all because, in order to borrow and read a legacy-level cultivation technique, one had to render meritorious service to the faction, which was mostly only attainable by the elder disciples. Chi Ruolan's calm eyes slightly narrowed. Su Yu actually possessed a legacy-level cultivation technique. On the battle stage, Su Yu lightly clenched his fists, once again displaying the flickering purple light. A purple lotus flower, extremely exquisite and delicate, charmed everyone present. Slowly spinning within his palms, its shape was similar to that of a mesmerizing beauty. Slivers of destructive thunder flames were contained within it. Raising his head, he shot a glance at Wu Pangyun. Like what I said, I only need one hand to deal with you. Purple Star Thunderbolt. Swoosh. With a flick of his body, Su Yu had gone on the offensive. Wu Pangyun's facial expression greatly changed. How could he still possess his arrogant attitude? Moon-cracking palm. It was a top-realm deity-level cultivation technique, fully infused with his spiritual energy. The palm exuded a sharp wind. It was apparent that, after it had been infused with spiritual energy, the power of the move had increased exponentially. The palm was like thunder and it made an impressively loud noise, as though it contained the power to induce planetary destruction. Not only had Wu Pangyun used his moves, he had gone all out. Boom! A deafening roar reverberated across the area, shaking the clouds. The ultimate clash of a legacy-level cultivation technique against the full power of a holy king. Su Yu took a few steps back, a sharp pain in his palm. Similarly, Wu Pangyun took a few steps back with an unbearable pain in his burnt palm. They were actually evenly matched. Although the legacy-level cultivation technique is strong, the possessor has yet to achieve a breakthrough into Holy King. As such, its power is mediocre, Shi Ruolan commented indifferently. The masses silently nodded their heads in agreement. The power of the legacy-level cultivation technique was definitely more than they had seen. Under normal circumstances, holy kings who possessed a legacy-level cultivation technique were usually able to defeat higher-tiered holy kings which did not possess one. Again, for the first time, Wu Pangyun felt slight apprehension. The depository of scriptures, which was right before his eyes, might be snatched right away from him. Boom! Su Yu calmly used his moves, and fought gallantly against Wu Pangyun. A noise shook the skies and lingered faintly until the audience became numb to it. It was difficult to see who was winning. Even after 100 moves, neither party held the upper hand. 100 moves have passed. Both parties' strengths are equal. As such, this match shall be concluded as a draw. The challenged obtains 1/4 of the challenger's points. Wu Pangyun had a total of 200 points. Su Yu had 120 points. After receiving 1/4 of Wu Pangyun's points, he had a total of 150 points. Alternatively, Wu Pangyun was left with 150 points. Su Yu's points were slightly more than Wu Pangyun's by 20 points. The person with the highest points is Su Yu. His prize is as follows: 5 low-grade marrow cleansing elixirs and a one-time exception to enter the depository of scriptures. Master Li's face turned cold and he sighed. Li Guang, you have indeed taken in an exceptional disciple. Su Yu had amazed the world with his brilliant feat. He had completely cemented his title of King of the Test. Possessing a legacy-level cultivation technique, and honing it to an impressive level was enough to show Su Yu's powerful insight was extremely impressive. After all, even those who with above-average talent took 5 years to comprehend the basic level of legacy-level cultivation technique. Usually, an average youth would start to gain considerable insight at 13 years old. Su Yu was merely 14 years old. In a short year, he had successfully comprehended a legacy-level cultivation technique. His insight was terrifying. The 100 vassal clans were all secretly jealous. If only such an exceptional talent were a part of their clan. With some additional training, he was bound to become a powerful source of strength. Master Li, long time no see. A tan-faced burly man approached Master Li courteously, attempting to strike up a conversation. Congratulations. The Li family is truly exceptional, to actually have such a rare talent. Another green-robed elder said as he approached. Following closely after, intentionally or unintentionally, several elders also came along to strike a conversation. The fervor and warm reception of the masses was something that Master Li was not used to. Smiling bitterly, he had realized that among them, many were from the top 10 family clans. In the past, they had never bothered to establish any form of relations with the Li family. Yet now, in order to learn about Su Yu, they had chosen to lower themselves. Among them, Master Chen was the most eager and the most direct. Master Li, may I ask if Su Yu is engaged? Truth to be told, my daughter is in love, and we hope Master Li can approve, he smiled. The various elders silently scolded the wily fox, to actually use his own daughter as means to attain Su Yu. Not only would he obtain an exceptional genius, he would also attain a legacy-level cultivation technique. Among the 100 vassal clans, no one possessed any legacy-level cultivation technique. However, they could not do anything about it. Chen Zui's beauty had crowned her the flower of the 100 vassal clans. In addition, the Chen family was not weak at all. With such persuasive strength and beauty, the hopes of attracting Su Yu were not low. Master Li contemplated for a moment. Su Yu was currently without a strong backing. Maybe he could take this opportunity and let Su Yu marry into Chen family. Thank you for your daughter's affections. However, I am already engaged. Su Yu rushed over and cupped his hands in respect. He's engaged. Master Chen felt it was a pity. However, thinking carefully, it was no wonder such an exceptional talent had already been claimed. How could they even stand a chance? Disappointed, Master Chen went back to console Chen Zui. With a tremble of her slender body, Chen Zui started wailing. As the news spread, several maidens in love revealed a sad expression. Should there be a possibility, I hope that on account of Li Guang, you can look out for the descendants of Li family in the future, Master Li pleaded in shame. Among the descendants of the Li family, 3 of them had passed the entrance examination. Together, they could enter the outer sanctum. Su Yu nodded his head. Okay. Master Li was elated and grabbed the 3 youngsters. Su Yu already had an impression of the 3 youngsters. Previously, their attitude toward him was not friendly at all. We've seen senior Su Yu before. At that moment, the 3 youngsters stood nervously before Su Yu. Facing Su Yu was like facing an extremely respected elder. They did not dare take a deep breath, each of them extremely well behaved. Su Yu lightly nodded his head. In the future, we will be disciples of the same faction. Let's look out for one another. Thank you, Senior Su Yu. The 3 youngsters were extremely relieved and elated. With such a strong person having their backs, life in the outer sanctum would be much better. Thinking back, the 3 youngsters were extremely ashamed. As their faces blushed, they bowed in respect. Sorry, Senior Su Yu, in the past. It's all right. Follow me. The faction will soon arrange for us to settle some administrative matters after the examinations. Su Yu lightly waved as he turned his back and headed toward the center of the stage. Among the remaining 100 disciples, 50 had been disqualified, leaving behind the 50 people that passed. The cruel and harsh nature of the test was easy to see. After passing the test, they would be allowed into the faction, where they could train wholeheartedly. Su Yu secretly clenched his fist. Upon entering Lixian faction, he would have to make use of all sorts of resources and train doubly hard until the day comes when he could take the heads of Hanji and Shiruolan, and deliver them to Li Guang's grave. The 3rd round of exam, the final test, begins. Shiruolan announced. Everyone was shocked. Hasn't the exam already ended? Why? Countless elders all felt it was absurd. This year's exam was already bizarre enough. Now, a 3rd round. The crowd erupted into a commotion. This is the faction master's decision. Should you have any unhappiness, you may reason with him. Should you not, be quiet and let me finish what I have to say, Shiruolan replied expressionlessly. The entire venue went silent. Su Yu, alongside with the other disciples who had passed the exam, was extremely shocked. Why was there another round? The final test examines the actual combat ability of the candidate. The coastal cities have been harassed by a bunch of pirates. Your test will be to eliminate all of them, Shiruolan faintly announced. Wu Pangyun's expression remained calm. May I ask, which gang of pirates is it? Among the vast oceans, pirates ran amok everywhere. There were countless gangs of pirates of various sizes out in the sea. Sea Wolves pirates, Shiruolan announced calmly. What, are the people of Lixian faction crazy? An elder could not contain his rage, but he suddenly realized it was inappropriate and gagged his mouth to keep quiet. Simultaneously, many of the elders' blood boiled with righteous indignation. Su Yu's revealed a serious look. Could it be that the Sea Wolves pirates were extraordinary? It's them. Wu Pangyun's eyes narrowed and his face revealed great horror. It's that group, where their weakest members are half-holy kings, and their strongest is a 2nd-level holy king. Clan Master Shi, may I ask if that's the group you're talking about? Shiruolan shook her head faintly. It is indeed those Sea Wolves pirates. This round of exam will require you all to completely eliminate them, not leaving behind a single one. Should you not achieve this, all of you will be disqualified. This is simply asking the impossible. Including Su Yu, there are only 4 people with the power of Holy King. Wu Pangyun retorted angrily, but the Sea Wolves pirates, they have more than 100 people who are at least half Holy Kings. More than 10 first-level lower-tier Holy Kings. And 2 upper-tier, and 1 peak-tier. Moreover, the mysterious pirate chief is said to be a 2nd-level Holy King. Isn't this suicide? Even if multiple 2nd-level Holy Kings teamed up, they might still be unable to completely eliminate the Sea Wolves pirates. That was no test. It was apparent they were out to disqualify them all. You all have two choices. The first one is to accept the test, and the second one is to be disqualified, right here and right now. Xuanhuan's tone revealed her impatience and fury at being questioned. As she faintly shifted her gaze towards Su Yu, Xuanhuan announced, "If you are afraid of death, you can choose not to go." A sliver of cynicism could be felt as she swept her gaze past Su Yu. Su Yu's heart clenched. Was this obstacle intentionally set up for him? Xuanhuan wanted to obstruct Su Yu's path into Lixian faction, so as to destroy his future and make him lose any room for growth. Such an action had instead roused Su Yu's rebelliousness. He had come from a humble background. What type of desperate situation had he not encountered before? Thinking back, he had recklessly entered the evil forest when he was merely level 5 and faced off against the level 9 Slayer King. He had no fear then, and he was unafraid now. What's there to fear? Su Yu, accept the test. Su Yu took a step forward, his eyes calm. It was a Herculean task. Yet, Su Yu was insistent on trying it. He would attain nirvana in a desperate situation and rise from a humble background. Su Yu's journey to date was filled with terrifying encounters. To think they could obstruct him from continuing on his path and reaching greater heights was wishful thinking. End of the chapter. The Divine Nine Dragon will be read in 5 chapters for every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday and Sunday. Please leave this sound novel and press subscribe, follow, and the bell so you don't miss any new clips as well. See you.